Committee meeting to order. Everybody have a chance to take a look at the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion second to approve minutes. Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion's approved. Claims,
In the amount of $1,899,632.31. Of that, $886,196.89 is for bond payments, hence why the number is a lot larger than normal.
How often are those made? Is that once a year?
Bond payments?
Yeah.
We pay half the interest in the spring, about April, and then the second half of the interest and the principal payments are in the fall.
Oh, okay, so twice a year. Okay. Move to approve.
Second.
motion second to approve. Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on approving the operator license applications submitted by Riley Kos, Molly Class, Alexis Schaff, and Sarah Cyrick.
For the period of September 4th, 2019 to June 30th, 2021, contingent upon successful completion of a background check and payment of any outstanding debt owed to the city.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion second to approve. Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on approving the temporary operator's license application submitted by Catherine Habledinger, Peter Keski, Mary Claire Potter, Amber Reichel, and Emily Sumner.
These are for the Hudson Area Chamber of Commerce for the Spirit of the St. Croix Art Festival to be held September 28th to September 29th. Again, contingent upon successful completion of the background check and payment of any outstanding debt owed to the city.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on adding dive team program to the police department budget.
After speaking with the chief, we've kind of come up with a plan of what would it look like and where, how do we put it in the budget? So Jeff, if you want to.
Yeah, sure. So it's really not that big of a deal for us to add it in to our budget. It's about, we're talking total with maintenance, equipment, payroll for the employees, about $10,000. It'll take a little bit of work on the front end, because we'll basically have to have everybody reapply to see if working as part of a police department is something that they want to do or not. And then do an interview process so that we have a little bit more say of who's on our team.
So in the budget process, instead of, let's say, account 111, we're going to go 113, just like weight and measures, and a $10,000 line item for that is what we were thinking.
Right, kind of like how the school resource officers are set up, where they have criminal investigations, and we have patrol, and we have admin, right? Kind of broken down like that within our budget.
A sub-department within your overall police department as a dive team, so it will still have your labor and everything will be still split up correctly within there.
Yes.
Got it.
So, will you need some funds for the remainder of the year, or will that just come out of the EMS budget?
Well,
until
yeah, I
the-
don't have funds for the remainder of the year in my budget right now.
That's what I'm figuring, that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
How are we going to pay for this for the rest of the year?
Well, it's allocated for already in the budget, so.
Within the
In the EMS?
EMS budget.
Okay, so we'll just continue using that till the end of the year? Okay.
We're just trying to restructure
Yeah.
how
But
it
for-
looks on a budget sheet.
Yeah, for the 2020 budgeting cycle, it'll be making sure that it's now moved over and separated. But right now, yeah, it's all a continuous part of EMS. It's not separated out within
And now
their
we will-
budget.
And now what we're looking to do is approve that we go ahead, I'll make the motion, we approve, making this a line item under Jeff's budget, under the police department's budget.
Starting in 2020.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Motion and second to approve putting the dive team with the police department. Further discussion?
And then as we move forward in 2020, we will come up with an MOU, how we move forward with that.
Okay. Everybody good? Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Joy, you did the first, and then Randy, you did the second, correct?
I move.
Randy made the
Oh, Randy moved
motion.
you second. Thank you.
I made the
Got it.
second.
Want to make sure I had it correctly.
Discussion and possible action on approving the bid from Pember Companies, Inc. in the amount of $68,379 for St. Croix Street Sanitary Sewer Project.
Eric Kenningsgaard, SCH Consulting. We did the plans and we'll carry it through if approved. The project overview, Mr. Johnson, his department gave kind of an overview of what the project is. An extension of sanitary sewer west of First Street to serve both a residential home at 9th St. Croix Street and a future park restroom down on the west end. So the overall project is extension of low-pressure sewer roughly 500 feet west of First. I guess any questions on the project, the scope, anything?
Is it, there's a drain field down there from one of the old houses?
There is. There's this,
How old is it?
well, probably as old as the house. I don't know.
And they're still using it?
They are.
Wow.
Okay, so that,
Is there any assessment on that to them?
No, if not for the Excel project cleanup, there's encroachments obviously that exist down there. If not for, it would probably stay as it is. This is seen as an opportunity to create that water and sewer service to that trailhead facility or future trailhead facility at the end of St. Croix.
have the property owners been advised of all of that's going on? Do they have a problem with any of it?
No, not in this particular case, no. I think
Okay.
in the end, if there's an opportunity for that individual to get off of a septic system, I think that's something that.
That'd be handy.
Free.
So then the septic system would be completely removed
Yep,
at the city's expense or at their
it's
expense?
their expense.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that's the wrong place for a drainage field right close to the river, so.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on approving the appointment of a city engineer.
Excited tonight to bring you a recommendation from the interviewing committee for the hiring of Dean Chamberlain. He's currently a staff engineer with the city of Red Wing in Minnesota, has 10-plus years of experience, both public and private. The interviewing committee is excited, think he'll be a great fit in addition to our team. I'm pleased to say that, we took our time, and I think it paid dividends in coming up with a candidate that I think we're all going to be very, very happy with.
And that's within your budget, Mike?
Yep, step one.
I'll move we approve the.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. When does he come on?
October 7th.
Okay, great. Uh,
Oh, is he just?
Jenny,
just
you all
got
set?
it. You just got it.
yeah, I saw him. Okay.
So the Wisconsin Election Commission had a staff member in the area, so I invited him to come and speak to you tonight about something called the Badger Books, something that I am looking to ask for approval in the next budget cycle. So he is here to kind of demonstrate the Badger Book, give you some information on it, and answer any questions.
Hello.
Aye.
Thank you for making the time tonight. Just bear with me a quick second here. I'll get this set up. So this is obviously a truncated presentation. This normally takes about an hour and a half.
Whoa. You sell insurance?
You're here from Walkie Show. I'm not going to do it for an hour and a half. So let's do this. So basically, what I want to go over is just kind of the base functions that we have, what this does on election day, how it can save you some time, and primarily just address any questions you might have about the product. And if you're willing, you can take a few minutes, actually play around with it, see what it's like for a voter on election day. So have you heard anything about this previously? Is anyone? Okay. So essentially all this is when you go to check in the polling place on election day, you sign the poll book. this takes that process and it completely just automates the entire thing, so. One second here.
So one judge would be watching this?
Oh, yep, so,
I'm jumping ahead probably.
no, you're fine. We're gonna kind of truncate this and go as we go, but, so as you know, a regular poll book is gonna require the 2 election judges, election inspectors to watch it. With these, there's actually a provision where only one person, thank you very much. Only one person would have to watch this, so you'd be able to set up the polling place with staffing, 7%. Your staffing considerations are going to be different at that point as well. There is the possible contingency plan where if it did go down, you had to revert to a paper poll book. You would go back to those 2 election inspectors. But do you mind if I pass out? I do have some. And this just kind of is a very, we'll call it crash course to what it does. The secondary pages on there and the last page will kind of have considerations for municipal staff, considerations for anyone else. Pardon me. Alright, so as I said, well, I'm still getting it set up here. The primary functions of this: checking in voters, election day registrations, and processing absentee ballots. And this is a central count municipality, is that correct? Yes. Okay. So the only thing that changes is that you would need to have a dedicated server at your central count facility, and that would just be used to process absentee ballots all day on election day. In lieu of, typically they would be at the polling place doing that. They would have a separate one to do that.
Just a second.
Yes.
So, Jenny, maybe you ought to come up here then too. I presume that's at the county?
I'm sorry, what's?
I presume that server's at the county?
No, it's up to each municipality to decide whether or not it works for theirs. So typically a city with 1,000 people may not opt for this, but because we're larger, it's something that we're looking into.
So the secure server is going to be right here?
Yes.
Okay.
Jenny, why don't you step to the microphone?
And in terms of security, I just want to address that quickly too. This is something also that never touches the internet in any way. It's just a point of sale system that you would see in a restaurant, for example, but never in any sense should it touch the internet. It's a little confusing because it does actually require a router to run, but that's just to establish a local network within the polling place. So let's say you have 4 of these at a particular polling place. One of them is a server, and the other 3 would be clients, and they all talk to each other. So they all reroute the information back to this guy. That's the only reason they have to be connected wirelessly at all. But again, that's not what, it's not connected to the internet, so just.
And our server is not connected to the internet?
It is, yeah, yes, sir.
So it is connected to the internet?
This is an entirely separate thing. So are you speaking about like
You said
election
that
management?
You
or?
said we needed a secure server in order to operate this. If we're running the server and our server is connected to the internet, then this is connected to the internet.
I apologize. So these each have different designations. So the unit itself will either be a client machine or a server machine. So this operates completely independently of any results management reporting, any election management system that operates separately. This is essentially just the poll book. So it's not a tabulator. It doesn't tabulate votes or send results to the county. It simply exists on its own to do registrations, to process ballots, and to check in voters. So as I said, it should, in every case, never touch the internet. I mean, it has the capability to go online. It's a Windows product. It can if you make it. But in a perfect world, it would never touch the internet in any sense.
So I noticed Brian walked out. It would be nice to have him here for this conversation. Anybody know where he went?
He might maybe in the office. So we would need 4 of these? We got 4 polling places? 3?
I believe the recommended use is 1 for each 1,000 voters.
We've actually
In a
lowered
polling
that to 800. So for every 800 registered voters in a polling place, plus 1, just to deal with high traffic elections. If you want to have a dedicated one for registrations, certain municipalities have done that as well.
So we're taking out the human factor to speed up the process of on-day registration and absentee count.
Correct.
That's all this is really doing.
Um,
Since you just said it doesn't tabulate.
It doesn't tabulate, correct. So essentially, it is a phenomenal time savings based on what I've heard. Most of the time savings will occur on the back end. So it's not that much more complicated than flipping through the poll book, finding it. Maybe we could try it out too, just to see how quickly the process goes. But I think the biggest lump sum that you'll see in terms of time added on election day will be just a bit more time to do a registration. But there will be no paper forms for that registration. Everything will be kept electronically and then will be pulled out at the end of the night and go directly into WisVote, which is the voter registration system for the state of Wisconsin. I was actually speaking to a municipality down in Waukesha today. It's a town, I can't remember exactly. It's not a huge municipality. And just in terms of time saved on the back end, as I alluded to, they calculate per election that this is used, they're going to be saving about 60 to 70 man hours per election, just doing reconciliation tasks, and that's, the entire clerk staff would feel that as well. So you're taking essentially what can be 2 to 3 days worth of work, and we can do it in 2 to 3 hours now with a much more accurate set of data. And actually, it does save time in the polling place as well. I want to just kind of go back to that. If you're having your lines split up, your A to M and your N to Z, this doesn't require that anymore. Anyone who checks in at that polling place can go to any line, and they will, that's why they need to communicate to the server. So as long as they're in a specific ward, they can go to whatever machine they wish in the polling place, and it will keep that central count on this server completely independently, ward by ward.
So okay, so we have three, right?
Yeah.
So if anybody walks in here, we have 2 districts here.
Correct.
That's still the only same people that need to come here.
Hmm?
I can't go up to the ones,
Right. It would still operate on the reporting units, so whichever wards vote here would still vote here. But any separations, that would be separate poll books for the ward, separate sanitary districts, school districts, for example. They would all be able to check in on the same machine. And then it would provide just a little voter check-in slip that has a particular ballot style. So it'll show that voter's ward, their sanitary district, their school district, to whatever level it's specified.
okay.
So we wouldn't have to have separate lines for the 2 different districts?
Correct.
Okay.
We can go to either.
And all right, so what tasks on the back end are being handled by this that are being done by hand now?
It would be, and I think Jennifer could speak to this more so than I would be able to, it would be hand entering election day registrations, trying to reconcile if there's incorrect information on those, following up with the voters in question if they did provide incorrect information to make sure the registrations are solid. This will immediately flag anything that's kind of extra jurisdictional. Maybe they weren't supposed to vote in this when they registered, so they'll send them, it'll generate a number of reports, name misspellings, address corrections, and that'll all go into WisVote, like I said. So that won't be a manual process. It will actually provide that. And we, at WEC, we've had to kind of do that in the past when we were in the early beta stages, helping out the municipalities that were on board, going through. And it's a much smoother process, I think, than trying to do all of that manually. And if you can speak, what are the reconciliation processes like for registrations?
Sure. So after an election, we, the clerk's office, and we've actually recruited a poll worker in the past, depending on the amount of election day registrations we've had. It can take up to a few days just to enter those manually. And again, if there's any discrepancies in the applications, that would be eliminated by using this machine. And I believe it also would eliminate one position, if I'm correct, because for this machine, only one worker would need to be there to assist a voter, whereas the poll books that we use today, the paper books, you would need 2, because the one worker would verify identification, have the voter sign in, and then the other person would issue the ballot slip. And so this would also eliminate discrepancies between ballot issued and ballots counted. So in the past, we've had it to where, did we really issue 2 voter slips for one voter? So with this, once a voter is checked in, the printer would automatically print a voter slip. And on that slip, it would tell you what ballot is needed. So for example, in the spring, we have supervisory districts on the ballot. This would tell the next worker what kind of ballot to issue that voter. So that confusion is eliminated. And so with this also, it goes step by step on what the election worker needs to tell the voter. It kind of eliminates having to memorize a lot of needed information. It'll prompt them what to say, what kind of identification to look for, and those type of things. So it's really a cost saver,
Right.
in my
exactly.
opinion, yeah.
And the hands-on part, it's important to train poll workers in this, but as you alluded to, we're trying to implement these more. Everything that we want a poll worker to do is clearly spelled out on the screen, step by step, and everything we want them to say verbatim to the person checking in is in a blue speech bubble. So we kind of differentiate between those. And then you'll get into situations where for like proof of identification or proof of residence, there are different requirements, right? It's, this can be valid if it's not expired since after the last general election, or this needs to be issued by this unit of government. If you click on each one of those in there, it will give a little help pop-up that clearly stipulates every single one of those requirements. So that's a lot of time saved just in errors and not having to research specific requirements for proof of identification or proof of residence exchange.
So it should speed up the actual process of voting. The lines should go faster with that.
It should, yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
So now you're saying how many machines? 14 machines because we have, or even more, because we've got just under 14,000 people here.
Yep, so it's
Registered voters or...
Registered.
Oh, it's registered voters.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's, one for every 800 plus
8,000, something like that, so
Yeah, 11
10
or so.
machines, 11. Do we need somebody, an individual at each machine,
You do, yep,
a judge?
correct.
Uh-huh.
So we need more judges than we had before.
You would need one less. Because today you would need 2 poll workers for at the poll station. So with this, you would just need 1. So a voter would come up, present their identification. The poll worker would verify all that information, check them in, and then print the voter slip.
Well, what's the reason that we have 2 judges for each station?
I believe that's a statutory requirement. It's for verification purposes.
And you're saying that we don't need two judges to verify the information coming off of this machine? I think that's gonna create some problems.
And I can speak to the statutory reference after the fact. I don't have it handy. I believe there are separate provisions made specifically for electronic poll books. And again, I don't have the statute handy, and I apologize.
Well, that was a check and balance to have 2 judges there. Now you're just letting one person do it who has access to the database of that.
So it has access to all the registered voters' addresses, but they wouldn't be able to go in and change anything. That level of access would still rest in the clerk's office.
So they couldn't disqualify a voter
No,
to be able to vote.
correct, absolutely.
But they may have the potential to have to re-register? Or how do you transfer the book? Is it just a computer transfer into this system, who you have as registered voters?
Right, it would be preloaded onto a flash drive prior to the election, and then it would be transferred onto it, and then similarly at the end of the night, it would generate the reports and the data files onto the same flash drive, and that would go into the clerk's machine in the office, and that would be uploaded directly to the registration software.
So they can't disqualify somebody from voting, but what if there's inaccurate information?
Inaccurate information insofar as,
Well, when the voter comes and hands the license, shows their ID, what if it doesn't match up with the information that we have on the system?
doesn't match up in terms of ID, those are separate questions, I believe. So are you asking if they're re-registering and it doesn't match up, or if they are presenting a form of photo ID that doesn't match what's on there?
The latter.
So in that case, if they're already registered, it doesn't need to have the current address on it, depending on the form of photo ID. So this is a very
Really?
multivariate question, yep. So if you're using, like, say, your
So I'm
DOT
using my driver's license, and I come in with a driver's license that doesn't have the same address down there that my registration does on my list, that's okay?
Correct.
Then what's the point?
I'm not sorry. This is all statutory.
So when you go to vote and you present your ID, you're pretty much just verifying your identity. You're not registering to vote. So if that voter's voting information the address doesn't match what we have in the system, we would direct that voter to the correct polling location if it's not at that site. So if they've moved from one part of town and it happens often, they'll come to the city hall and say, well, I always vote here. Well, you know, if you moved, then that's not always the case. You have to go to your next location. If they've moved, and so they would have to go there and re-register at that correct location. But on election day, we're just verifying identity, not the address. We verify the address when they're registering to vote.
But in that same scenario, so if on election day they show you an ID and they're in a different district, you're gonna let them vote in that district.
No, they would have to be registered in that case. So
Well, it depends on where they actually live, because, all right, so let's say somebody's moved, they haven't updated their address on their actual driver's license, they would have to present something that would prove that they live at the new address.
Well, then they also have to live at that address for at least 10 days.
Right.
So if the information isn't matching up, the poll worker would then say, how long have you lived at this address? It has to be at least 10 days. Well, no, it hasn't been 10 days, and you have to go back and vote at your previous location until you re-register.
Doesn't sound very secure on its surface.
Right.
Yeah. It seems too easy to let anybody just vote anytime on election day.
Well, it would be no different than using the paper poll books. This is just bringing it to the electronic age. So we're downloading the information before the lines are even opened. So we have the same information that we would already have. And it's not connected in any way. So like Mr. Davies was saying, at the end of the night, we take that information, download it, and then we'll upload it, which would save us many hours with the
All
data
right,
entry.
So I'm registered to vote in my district, my ward, okay? I moved. But I want to vote here. But my driver's license shows that I live in Eau Claire. But my name is still on this list. And I come in with a driver's license that has an Eau Claire address with my name, because I'm in the same district, I'm voting in the same district I used to live in, so my name is on that register list. What happens?
Well, if you're if you're within the same district,
No, I'm in Eau Claire now.
well, you'd have to re-register there.
I'm on this list. Whoa!
Carol, we got you.
Come on down.
You would already have had to re-register where it is you're going to be voting. So if you have that.
I think you're missing the point. What if I didn't?
Well, then,
but then you're voting here.
you're
That
committing
my point
fraud.
is-
You're committing election
I
fraud.
mean, that's
Well,
voting fraud.
I may have accomplices, and I may have accomplices here, is my point, okay? So, yeah, I'm committing election fraud. My question, it goes back to my original question. What do you do with somebody who comes in, because you're saying all you're doing is verifying that this person is who they are, and we don't care about addresses. Well, if I live in Eau Claire, I would hope you care about an address.
You would have had to have used another proof of residence to prove where you're living, whether it's maybe a utility bill, or there's about 10.
So you're going to
different-
ask me for that. I come in, I have a license that says I live in Eau
At the
Claire.
registration, yes, to register, you would have to have.
I'm already registered. I'm already on your list, but I moved.
I don't know how you would get on our list.
Yes, yeah.
I started out on your list and then I moved.
So he didn't change his,
So you
His
went
registration.
here, went to Eau Claire, and then came back
Yeah, I came here to vote.
at the same address? Because college students
I'm
do
going to
that all
show
the time
you my
too.
photo ID. My driver's license says I now live in Eau Claire, but I haven't changed my voter registration. I still show up on the voter registration list here unless I do something affirmatively to change that. Is that true?
Correct, unless you
Okay,
re-register.
so I didn't do that. So I come here to vote, I hand you my photo ID, my photo ID says Rich O'Connor, yep, you're on the list. Does that work? You told me you weren't checking addresses.
Well, we're gonna ask you
So
to
does that
state your
work?
name and address.
So we are looking at addresses.
Not in terms of the photo ID, the state your name and address is part of the check-in process.
And then your name's gonna pop up on that screen as Rich at 1124 Maple Street,
Yep.
because you would have registered that way at some point in time.
But if he was out to commit fraud, he could say that same address
It would
and
be
it pops
that
up.
way whether you're doing paper, if you're out to commit fraud, whether you're doing paper registration or from a machine.
Well, but again, my question then is, my question started out, what happens if the information on the address is wrong? And the answer I got is, it doesn't matter.
We would, I would do challenge documents, there's challenge documents.
Now,
we
we're
would do
down to
that
one,
process.
we're down to one judge, not two. Now, what if I have someone who's complicit in that?
Complicit in you committing voter fraud?
That's right.
Interesting.
I don't have two judges like I do now, I've only got one.
And it's your friend who's working the poll, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
I believe in the scenario, if you're presenting, I mean, not in terms of complicity notwithstanding, but if you're presenting it to two people and they're verifying, you're still stating your old address. I'm sorry, I'm trying to retrace the scenario. Well, you're coming up with your photo ID with a new address, you're stating that you still live in Hudson and you're looking to vote here. You state your name and the address you're previously registered at here. Is
I'm
that?
showing you my photo ID that shows I live in Eau Claire, but you don't care.
We're on step 1 and 2, so that's step 3. In step 1 and 2, you're stating the address where you lived in Hudson. And you're stating to effect that you are a registered and qualified elector of this district at that address. Is that?
Not necessarily. You're asking for my photo ID, I'm showing you my photo ID that says I live in Eau Claire now.
After you've stated your name and address.
Yeah, but I might just say my address is in Eau Claire, and I'm dealing with just one judge. There's nobody at that table that's checking that judge, where right now we have checks and balances. We have two judges. Right name and address? Yep, that's what they do. They're not gonna do that anymore. We're gonna have one judge, and if there's somebody that wanted to be complicit in fraud,
If they wanted to be complicit and register you in Eau Claire on this machine on election day, they would not be able to. It doesn't allow for extra jurisdictional registrations. It would redirect you.
I'm already on the list. They just checked me in, they say he's good to go. Showed me the ID, yeah, address didn't match up, but I don't care. He's good to go, his name is still on the list.
Get there.
I think, are we in two separate scenarios now? I'm just trying to keep up at this point. I'm not trying to be flippant in any way.
No,
but
that's fine, same scenario.
Same
I've
scenario.
got somebody that is, I know is a poll judge working in the ward or district that I used to live in. I don't live there anymore. I've got an ID that I show that shows my new address, but that judge doesn't care because I'm still on the list because I haven't changed my registration to vote somewhere else.
Correct. In that case, to vote here, you would have to state the address that you were previously registered
It
at.
doesn't
here.
prevent me from voting though if I've got a judge that's gonna check me in and nobody verifying that information that that judge just received. Whereas we have two judges right now and they do verify. They say, here's the ID, this is who it is, this is where he lives. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Okay, you're good to go. Now we're down to one judge. Now, I'm not saying that this is gonna be rampant, but could it happen? Yeah.
But if you go in for absentee voting, there's only one person who's managing the system. So how is it different from absentee voting?
I haven't absentee voted, so I can't answer that. I
Okay.
don't know.
I do it all the time.
When you register to vote beforehand, that is how your name appears in a poll book, whether it would be us grabbing the information and printing out pages upon pages,
Yep.
or getting in this electronic poll book. It's the same process. So if you registered on election day, you would need to have your proof of residence. If it doesn't match your driver's license, then we're asking for we're asking to see you on your picture ID, your name, and we're asking to see what other proof did you bring for us today to show us that you live at 1124 Maple Street, your utility bill or
I
something.
get that. I
That would
understand
be
that.
whether paper or electronic.
All right, well, we're running short of time. I don't want to monopolize all the time here, so.
I apologize.
No, no, not at all,
It's-
not at all. I just trying to understand this.
I guess to belabor the scenario in my short time, could you not also have complicity with 2 election inspectors?
Generally, I don't know exactly how the judges are selected, but I think that they're selected based upon different, are they not? Or-
Political parties.
Yeah.
But in the hypothetical,
Yeah, well, that's true.
could still have,
Yeah, help that independent voter come in and vote, I guess.
can't comment on that.
So where is the printer?
So I believe you were interested in standalone.
Yes.
So there are 2 separate orientations on this as far as the printer is concerned. I did just check in a voter quick here just so we can see this.
Oh,
So this one does have, it's called the integrated version, so it is built into the tower of the unit, whereas the standalone is just a separate, it's another cord, that's my only consideration for it. It's a printer, it's about yay big. I unfortunately did not bring both versions with me tonight.
how many printers would you need for
It would
each
be-
polling place?
It would actually be, so they are sold, every single unit, regardless of integrated or standalone, does come with its own printer.
Okay.
So it would be 1 printer per unit. The other difference here is this is what an integrated paper roll looks like, and this is a standalone paper roll. Given that that's 3 or 4 inches long, this is, I think, 240 feet, and this is 90 feet. So this is going to give you a lot more per paper roll, I think, just based on how many come in a box. The price break is fairly congruent, but you will have to change the paper less, I guess. So if that's a consideration, standalone would probably be your best option at that point. And that does additionally, some poll workers do find it kind of hard to reach up and tear this off. You can actually just face that separately over here to that person issuing the ballots. So you can kind of have it spread out a bit more. But yeah, that's totally the decision to be made at time of purchase.
So an integrated printer?
It's in the stand
We just-
versus the
In the
stand.
stand, okay.
All right, I'm just gonna zoom through this here real quick, just so you
Got
can
it.
kind
The
of.
other one's more like what we
I've
have
got
at the
it.
front desk.
Right there. So every one of these will have on the voter's number for that ward, the particular ballot style, and the ward listing itself. This is not programmed to that level of specificity right now, but if there are different school districts or sanitary districts, as I mentioned, those will all display here as well. And any of the ballot styles you see on here are, it will pull that directly from what's programmed prior to Election Day. So it won't always be ballot style 1, 2, and 3. Some municipalities, a red ballot, yellow ballot, green ballot, depending on, and that works better for them. This will reflect however it's programmed prior to Election Day and just makes it easier at that point.
So that should prevent some confusion as far as which ballot to give the voter, because there are, I mean, I know that there were some problems with an election recently, not in our district, but in this area where they were given the wrong ballots. Thanks.
No, absolutely. And like I said, if there are separate wards, it will keep those counts concurrently as normal paper poll books would in separate places. This will just kind of bring everything together and keep a central count that way. That point, let me see here. Were there any other main points or questions? I'm not sure. I don't want to ruin the last 5 minutes of your meeting here.
No.
And I just wanted to say that lastly, all of our election workers are, receive training the election before, a week before each election, and they are all very comfortable with contacting their chief election inspector. Each location has one chief. And so if there's a question, something they're not sure about, they reach out to that. And if by chance the chief has a question, then they reach out to Karen or myself. And so we are able to answer any questions from there if there's any confusion on their part. So,
And yeah, we're always available as well if there are any additional questions. So the hardware itself is from a third party. We would be purchasing through PDS, but as long as the municipality owns the hardware, we support and upgrade the software accordingly in perpetuity for as long as you own the hardware. So, I mean, I believe, as with any electronic device, it's 4 to 6 years is kind of a general lifespan, and I believe those are regularly used electronic devices. So if you're using them 2 to 4 to 5 times a year, you might get some more time out of it. So if you do keep it for a few years, we will offer software upgrades, any bug fixes that you may identify. We would handle all of that, absolutely.
Mayor, our IT director is here. Did you have any questions for him regarding the server on
No,
this?
he missed the whole first part, so unless, Brian, are you familiar with this? No. Okay.
How many municipalities around this area have gone to this?
I'm actually not certain. Has anyone up here?
River Falls had a few loaners for
Oh,
the
that's
last
right.
election, and Karen and I were able to go there and firsthand see it working for the spring election, and it worked well. The poll workers who were at that location had nothing but positive things to say about it. River Falls is looking to purchase these Badger books for the next budget cycle as well.
And one quick note to address is there is some apprehension, I believe, in poll workers themselves. Changes change regardless whether it's an electronic poll book or anything. Just anecdotally, what I've seen are poll workers who have never used a computer before, essentially, going into trainings, going into like mock elections that we have, just like, well, this isn't going to work. I have no interest in this. And an hour later, they're cruising through there. It's very, very intuitive. It can be, actually, I didn't touch on this at all. So everything can be used either with a mouse and the keyboard, or it is entirely touchscreen as well. It handles any sort of dexterity issues. You can use a stylus, and the voter signs directly on here, or you can have a dedicated signature pad as well. So there are 4 USB ports. The only one that is occupied at any given time would be for the scanner here, which scans IDs. And the other 3, you can use any peripheral device that would work with this program.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you for your time.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, Karen.
I'll just take it out there and break it down there.
Items for future agenda?
I was just waiting for- All right, anybody have anything for future agendas?
No, but I just want to direct though that finance, that there's the 75 million grant which is available. And I shared this with the community development because it's all dedicated for roads, bridges, transient capital, facility grants, railroad, harbors.
Yeah. Thank you, Randy.
Yeah. Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.